Hi. For the past 2.5 years, I've been going through a lot of changes and transitions. Most of them have coincided with me realizing that I'm neurodivergent about 2.5 years ago. The label or assessment that I best identify with thus far is being ADHD, AuDHD, sorry. So autistic and ADHD. It also coincided with me ending an almost 2 year trip where I spent a lot of time in Nepal, India, the Himalayas, Europe, where I was moving quite constantly. Maybe I'd stay in a certain place for a month or a couple of months, sometimes a couple of weeks. And also, going from my late 30s into my early 40s and all the hormonal changes and fluctuations that go with that. I also started to relocate to a different country. So I used to be, before the trip, I used to be based in Mexico City. And in these past 2 years, I've been coming and going to and from London and Mexico. And recently, kind of, coming to London to live more permanently. Also, starting a relationship, which isn't that new anymore, but that's essentially the reason why I'm in London. Also, I guess kind of transitioning to a different career and then kind of going back. So I've been an actor all my life. Then I started doing art as well, and then I trained as a therapist and started with that as well. And now I'm kind of trying to go back into just acting and art, at least for now. So a lot of changes, a lot of things. And I've also talked about this in other videos, but last year I'm still, I think, in burnout, but maybe in the last bit of it, but essentially going through burnout, autistic burnout, which is really, really horrible. And and the thing is that, these past 2 years have had a lot to do, especially with the neurodivergent journey, with understanding the language, understanding where the things that happen to me come from, kind of being able to realize, oh, okay, this can be attributed to autism, or maybe I have challenges with this because of the ADHD, etc. So a lot of learning, a lot of kind of realizing, obsessive research. But now I feel that I am in a place where not only can I look back and kind of map the journey of these past 2 years. So the boat is moving quite a lot. When the boats pass on the Thames, it creates waves and moves a lot. But anyhow, I feel that I can look back and kind of map what has been happening, but also I think I'm in a place where I'm starting kind of like a new part of my life, a new period in my life. And one, it has to do with feeling that I'm coming out of burnout, which is amazing because being in burnout is the most horrible thing. My energy was completely depleted. I didn't feel that I had space for anything. Everything was very difficult. Of course, no creativity. Sometimes it'd be even hard to get out of bed, etc., etc. And now I feel that I'm slowly but surely regaining my energy. And also, I have been, for the past 2 years, I've been between London and Mexico, but recently I went back to Mexico to get my visa. And I've been in London for about a month now with a visa. So that means I can now, work and live here and stay here as long as I want until, So even though essentially nothing has changed, I'm still living in the same place. The daily dynamic is very similar. The idea of being able to start to create a more stable life here is just, it just changes everything. And for the first time in about 4 or 5 years, I feel that what's ahead of me is a little bit more stable, even though it's part of my nature to keep moving and to do projects in other places and things like that. I kind of feel that I that I can probably say that I'll be here for the next months, the next years, and that feels really nice. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about today is sort of this, this new space where it feels that, that I went through a, I don't know, like kind of a stage or a level in a video game, and I just went into the new one. And it's the first steps that I'm taking in this, in this new world, kind of recognizing how my body works in this new place. But my body still has kind of like the traumatic experiences of the past years. So I feel that it's a lot, this moment right now is a lot about kind of, being very conscious about having my body really absorb and take in the, this new state, which has a lot to do with feeling more at ease, which is great. And I wanted to share with you, a recent trip that we took, but it's kind of like an analogy for all of this, because we recently we took the boat out to sea. I mean, technically we just go into the sea for very briefly. we are moored in central London, very close to Tower Bridge. So we take the boat out through the Thames towards the sea, and then we kind of like turn around and go back in. But we went to this place. It's a tidal river called the Swale. I hope I'm getting this right. But essentially, my partner goes there almost every year because they host like a historic barges race. And even, I mean, most of the boats that you see are these beautiful sailing barges, or Thames barges. And ours isn't, well, ours, my partner's boat isn't a sailing boat, but we still take it, and it's great fun. And it's a beautiful journey. I've done it with him for the past 3 years, but it was very significant to do it this year because last year I had the worst meltdown of my life during the trip. And we were in the middle of the water, and the boat, it was not only my partner and myself, but it was filled with friends of his as well. So it was really, really horrible and really difficult, and it was quite traumatic, not only for me, but for him and probably for his friends. It kind of ruined the trip to a certain extent, or to a big extent. And we hadn't gone out with the boat since then. We hadn't gone out there since then, and we hadn't taken the boat out by ourselves, because usually for that particular trip we go with friends. We have taken the boat out, just him and me, but we had never done that to that place. And it was really nice to go, because I realized that we can do things that were previously very difficult, and if we allow time and the learning process to kind of like find its place, things can get better and they can be better. So I was quite nervous about going to this particular trip, because I didn't know if it would trigger memories, or it would, something similar would happen. I don't know. But I realized that, not only did it not happen, but it was a really beautiful experience. And it also made me see and understand how much not only my mind has learned in these past 2 years, but also my body. And so, to give you a little bit of context, the trip is quite demanding, even though, we do take our home with us. There's a lot to prepare. Previous to the journey, we have to fill the water tanks, empty the black water tanks. We have to secure everything. We have to make sure the engine works. We have to, get supplies. In this case, we had to reseal all the portholes because they hadn't been sealed in a long time, etc., etc. And everything on a boat is it's very physical. And even though my partner is the one who tackles most of the very, very, heavy projects, even, I mean, me just helping him with those heavy projects, or me doing the other not so heavy projects is, it's very physically demanding and draining as well. And he has he's just blessed with this, incredible strength and energy. And normally, and this is crazy because when I met him, I was kind of like starting this burnout phase. So he has never really met me at my kind of like energetic peak. And, he just knows about it. But when it's funny because when we were introduced, we have a common friend, and the way he introduced me to him by text was, saying that I had just gone to Everest. I went to Everest Base Camp, and that I had all done all these really crazy feats, which are true, but I at least right now, maybe in a little bit of time I'll be able to do it again, but at least right now they feel inaccessible to me. And so I'm just mentioning this because even though, there's also kind of like a disparity in terms of the awareness of the energy demands, because some things that, that might seem, quite easy to him might actually be very, very difficult for me, or draining, etc. But saying all of that, I mean, the journey is tiring, the preparation is tiring, and it's really beautiful, and it's the most amazing thing once you're there. And we did get to relax for a few days, but but it was a short trip, and then we also have to come back, and of course the journey back is also demanding, and then arriving, and mooring back again is also demanding. And my body kind of remembered all of that. It remembered feeling completely depleted in the previous journeys. It remembered the panic when coming into the mooring and having to go through all the maneuvers with the ropes. But because I have done it in the past, and the first times that I did it, of course I didn't know anything. And and even though you can go through the motions in your head and know everything theoretically, it's not until you actually experience it that you realize, oh gosh, no, this is way too heavy, or this is way too demanding, or actually I should hold it like this. So your body starts to kind of learn and adjust. But the first experiences that you have with those kind of things also create an impact in your body, and they were quite traumatic in the first times. And I'm mentioning this as an analogy also to all the transitions with with burnout and the things that have happened in the past 2 years, because it's kind of like, I mean, at least for thinking about all the both things, my body and my mind remembers how difficult they were, let's say, in the first times we did it. And then this time, it's not the first time that we've taken the boat out by ourselves, but it was the first time where everything was just seamless, or very, I mean, I wouldn't say easy necessarily, but there was no trouble. No shouting, we both knew what we needed to do. I felt very confident. He also feels very confident. He has much more experience. But it was so nice, kind of like having my body realize, oh, this experience can also be calm and relaxing, or I don't know if relaxing, but manageable. And with the neurodivergent journey, or the hormonal journey, or this life transition, I feel that I'm also in that place as well. And my interest in mentioning it is also, I don't know, either to share it with you in case you're still in this kind of like difficult journey, or or just to get your perspective as well. But it does come a moment where things settle. And using this boat analogy to to kind of talk about this, these past 2 years, when I realized that I'm neurodivergent, of course it's not like I became a different person the second I found out, but it did feel like, with this new vocabulary that I had for naming the things that I was experiencing, the things that were challenging for me, it felt that, one, by naming them and kind of like shedding light to them, they came out and they came out with much more force. So let's say, for instance, the sensory issues. I had lived with sensory issues all my life, but as soon as I was able to kind of say, oh, this has a name, it's probably because I'm autistic. Not only did it kind of like come out and take its place in my experience, but also it made me kind of feel that I was like entitled, or that I could have the liberty to feel it, to feel overwhelmed by the sensory things, or to feel angry because I was feeling that. And I mean, and not only with the sensory things as well, of course, but with a bunch of other things. So there was this whole process of awareness, naming, like kind of like embodying the experience. And now I kind of feel that that they have taken a different place. So it almost feels like in these past 2 years it was I'm neurodivergent Pia, and now it's just I'm Pia, and and I happen to be AuDHD, and I happen to be this and do that and feel this. But it doesn't feel that it's kind of like the most prominent thing of my experience. It is, because I experience the world in such a way every single second, and it doesn't cease to affect me at any point, which is kind of annoying. But it's kind of like it's much more integrated into my life. And I can see it, for instance, even with the interactions with my partner, with things that would maybe cause a lot of friction before. I mean, now, and it's of course natural because we know more about the other, and we have, shared more time together, etc. But it feels like I don't know, they're just speaking about my experience, it feels that they're, I don't know, like assumed in a different way, that they have a place, and that I now know, to which extent to, maybe ask for an accommodation, or to which extent to deal with the accommodation myself, so as to not to make the other person feel too constrained. I don't know. I mean, the examples are very like specific to the situations, but it is a very nice place to be, because it's kind of like the first steps that my body and my mind, but especially my body, is taking to re-experience the world in a calm way, and feel that it can have space again for creativity, for enjoyment, for relaxing, for dreaming, for projects. It's I mean, if you have gone through burnout yourself, you'll understand how difficult it is to think about anything else other than survival. It was difficult sometimes to even get out of bed, to feed myself, to shower, just really, really simple things. And there's a huge grieving process as well, because, I mean, at least in my case, I've always had a very strong body that I felt that I could rely on. I mentioned I used to do a lot of high altitude mountaineering and run marathons, and and or create projects in my work, and it never ever crossed my mind that there was something that I couldn't do. Nothing. I would just think, okay, I want to do that, how do I achieve it? And in these past 2 years, it's been really odd to kind of feel that I have to really think about whether I would be able to manage that particular task energetically or not. And I'm not saying that, that today I'm ready to run a marathon or climb Everest or anything like that yet, but I do feel that there's kind of like a light starting to open. And the main thing is that I feel that my body is starting to have the experiences that make me feel kind of like sure that I can start walking that path again. So all this rambling to say that, there's a very nice and natural process that time takes. Of course, in that time we have to apply the learnings, but it does, I don't know, it does get better, and it does, it does come a moment where kind of like all that commotion and chaos starts to find its place in, you know, in a different way. And I think one of the I mean, errors might be to think that, you know, that once this period happens, I'm going to be able to go back to how I used to be. No, and we wouldn't even want that. You know, it's about what comes next, you know, what, you know, like what, how has this transformation changed me, or I don't know, transformed me? And I think there's a lot of beauty in that, because it doesn't have to do with, you know, with going back. It has to do with what lies in front. And I am sure only beautiful things are in front. Also, well, I mentioned it at the beginning, feeling that, you know, that now I can start to build a life here in London as well is I think it does play a big part in it, because even just going back to Mexico and coming back here, it just takes a lot of time and energy. I think I mentioned it in the last video, but finally I was able to create a little film a couple of weeks ago. I started to redesign my webpage to include my art and my acting. I'm starting to, you know, to put my kind of like my things together for trying to find an agent or a manager here in the UK and start acting again. So everything is kind of like falling into place, but there's a natural moment, you know, a natural transition, a natural kind of like time flow that has to happen for, you know, not only the mind but the body to feel at ease. And there has to be some wiggle room, you know, that there has to be, if we're thinking about, you know, how do I conserve my energy, you know, where am I going to live next week or next month, or how am I going to pay, you know, if you're in burnout, you know, I had to, for instance, you know, cut my work in half, more than half, you know, and that's another video that I want to make, because it, you know, kind of like the costs of taking care of yourself, there are many of them, but, you know, at the same time as you want to take care of your health and recover from burnout, you know, there's also the huge fear of, well, in the process of doing that, I'm also cutting my income, and, you know, like how can I manage that, or what am I going to do, etc. But I'll leave that for the next video. What I wanted to say is that it's you know, kind of like trust the process as well, and know that, I mean, I guess one of the goals is, you know, like calming, you know, focusing on getting your nervous system calm and, you know, and kind of like strong, stable, because, you know, without it, if we're constantly living in a state of alert, it's, you know, it's very difficult for, you know, the meaningful and beautiful things in life to actually, you know, manifest. Maybe they're there, but we won't have the, you know, the capacity, the energy, the eyes open to see it. And if we can't do that, you know, what's life worth for? That's, you know, those are the beautiful things about life. So I'm happy to report that I feel that I'm getting to a better place, and I really hope that you are too, whether your journey or transition has to do with, you know, with neurodivergence, or if it has to do with hormones, or, you know, being a woman and aging and how your body changes with all of that, or, you know, I don't know if you're a woman, maybe you're not, and there are a bunch of other, you know, transitions, things that are happening. It also feels that, you know, there's something going on in the world. We cannot live in the same ways as we have been, you know, in the past, and there's, you know, there's a great need for kind of like scaling back and going to simplicity, because that is where I feel beauty is, in you know, in connection with the world. A lot of the kind of like the work on oneself, you know, we can do a lot of it on our own and with self-therapy and meditation, and, you know, all of that is very valuable, but the way in which we, you know, we kind of allow it to kind of like not solidify but crystallize, or, you know, like actually impact ourselves, is in relation to others. So yeah, and we cannot, that effectively go and relate to others if we're in state of alert or survival mode, etc. But yeah, that's it for today, I think. I hope you have a really nice day. And I know that it's a very small community here so far, but I'm very grateful to all of you who have been watching the videos and leaving me comments. I greatly appreciate them. They make me feel less alone. And yeah, lots of love to all of you. Besos.